Hello, my name is Tyler Esselman.
And I'm Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to...
This One Goes to 11!
It's a podcast. That's what it is. It's a podcast where we invite our friends, family members, community members to come into our space and make their case for what they believe is a perfect album.
So perfect, in fact, that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
10 wouldn't do it justice.
Not at
10,
all.
Such a small number compared to 11.
Yeah, only 2 digits. Well, I guess
so
11 has 2
definitely
digits as well.
Less.
But yeah, it's got a 0 in it, you know.
It does.
Anyway,
we've got a great one for you this week. Such a delight. Michael, can you tell us who we will be hearing from this week?
Well, Tyler, are you looking for a talented actor who is based in Philadelphia, born and raised, who works really hard at everything she does, and who is also a phenomenal human being who's just fun to hang out with?
As a matter of fact, I am looking for that.
I found her. It's Kishia Nixon. And whether she's making you laugh on the stage of Azuka and Lantern Theaters, diving into the experimental world of companies like EgoPo and Diecast, or pouring her heart out in the Michael Osinski-directed online production of A Twist of Water at Passage Theater, she gets the job done. She's an absolute dream to work with, and she's definitely one of my favorite people in Philadelphia. Like, just all of Philadelphia. She's amazing.
The greater Southern Jersey and Philadelphia metro area.
She's on the list, most definitely.
Oh, that's high praise. And she was wonderful in A Twist of Water. Let me just say, excellent Zoom theater right there.
Yeah, it was, and it was just sort of my love for Chicago and my love for Kishia Nixon both coming together in one production.
That's amazing.
She brought us a pretty amazing album as well too. That sort of, it kind of forced both of us to like do a deep dive into this album, and like both like on an emotional level, but also on a nerdy music theory level. In some ways, it seemed like.
Yeah, we got real academic about this one, and I think it was the right idea. I'm glad we went down that path.
Yeah, we went down that path, so you don't have to, because we don't dive into all the academia, and Kishia makes an excellent case for it, regardless of the academic stuff.
She really does. So, without further ado, let's hear what she has to say.
Kishia Nixon, welcome to This One Goes to 11.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. How you doing today?
I'm not bad. The weather is really nice, so I just decided to walk around the neighborhood for a little bit.
Oh, that's a Sunday right there.
Yeah, right? Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Sometimes I feel like us recording these on Sundays, like we're missing out on prime weekend days.
Oh no. I feel
this
like
is a labor of love, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, once this becomes our career and we can do it, Monday through Friday, then we'll be totally fine. That's that's the dream.
And what a life that is.
So, Kishia, welcome to the This One Goes to 11 Tribunal. We asked you to choose a few albums that you considered perfect. And then we chose one of those. Which album have we chosen for you to make your case for today?
It's Tis Blonde by Frank Ocean. No E.
No E.
Well, depending on the cover. Some of the covers have an E on them.
Yeah. The other one with him with the helmet on, I believe, has an E on it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, before we dive into all the stuff that we usually get to in this episode, that you have sent us down quite the amazing rabbit hole with this album.
Yeah.
I mean, just like not only just like sort of deep listening that we did to it, but also we found this other podcast that talks about the album, and I mean
the whole thing,
like song by song in each episode.
Oh, I need that link. You need to drop that link to me too.
What's nice about it is that it's very different in tone from this podcast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's a very, and we in previous episodes we've sort of expressed our skepticism about very literary criticism of music, but this one I think does it very effectively.
Cool. Okay.
Called Dissect.
Wow.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like an English class, but in a good way. When you had the sort of nerdy English teacher in high school who made you look
that was just very excited about English and made it fun, kind of.
Made it fun. I don't know if I would say he gets excited, but he
okay.
It's not the word I would use for that.
Maybe excited in a very like introverted, nerdy sort of way. Which, like, I mean, hello, that's very much my energy.
We get it. We get
understand.
that for sure.
You're safe here.
Oh, thanks. Safe space. Well, before we dive in, there's one little segment that we do at the very beginning called The Beginner's Guide to Frank Ocean's Blonde in 60 Seconds. Because, some of our listeners haven't spent the past 2 weeks listening to this album nonstop over and over again like we have, and might want a little education. So this is actually I'm handling the intro this week, and
yes, he is.
Tyler's going to time me, and then you are going to evaluate me.
Oh,
and you can.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, let me get my red pen out. Yes, I was going to do this.
Being our resident Frank Ocean expert.
Yes.
I know. Okay.
You will be assessing. All right, well, then, Michael, are you ready? I have 60 seconds on the clock.
I am ready whenever you tell me when to go.
Okay, ready, and 3, 2, 1, go.
New Orleans' own Christopher Edwin Bro, a.k.a. Frank Ocean, got his start working with Tyler, the Creator, and hip-hop collective Odd Future before making a big splash in 2012 with his genre-defying, Grammy-winning debut, Channel Orange. But soon he realized how much he didn't like all the stuff that accompanies the biz, and promptly fired his management and publicist. He even managed to wiggle out of his contract with Def Jam by releasing the visual album Endless in 2016. Just 24 hours after that release, he released the album Blonde as an independent artist. It features deeply personal reflections from Ocean on his own history and on the duality of human existence, alongside unfettered musical experimentation and a few homages to the Beatles and Beach Boys. It also boasts a team of big-name collaborators, including Andre 3000, James Blake, John Bryan, Johnny Greenwood, and Beyonce, just to name a few. He's scheduled to headline Coachella in 2023, so if you're a super rich kid living the sweet life with some disposable cash and lots of free time next April, get your tickets now.
Oh, wow, that was perfect. That was like, wow. Kudos.
Moly,
I am proud of that one. I am really proud of that one.
Yes, applause.
You used every ounce of time. You used every little bit of it.
So how did I do, Kishia? What's on my report card?
Ooh, man, that was pretty good. Okay, so I guess it goes to 11, right?
Well, or you can do whatever sort of scale you want.
If you say so.
Oh, I could do any scale I want. Okay. Well, on the scale from vegetables to cake, I love cake. That is like my joint right there. So I would say you're like a cupcake. You're in the cupcake realm.
I will take that. Oh my God.
Yes.
You're speaking his language.
That is my favorite scale that we've had on this program.
Me too.
Although we shouldn't knock vegetables. I do love, as I have said already this season, I do love a roasted Brussels sprout. So.
Oh, okay. You got me there. I like veggies, but cake is where it's at. I'm just saying.
And especially a cupcake. It's a whole different genre. It's
right? Yeah. It's like totally different. It's not, they have mini cakes. Okay, let me not stop. Sorry, because I will never stop. This will be a totally different podcast.
I'm going to put your first points on the board just for your dedication to cake. I am very impressed with that. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you 3 Hollywood handshakes.
Oh,
if you're a Bake Off person, then you'll know that's a big deal.
Yes, that is.
All right, 3 Hollywood handshakes for you on the board.
Fun fact: did you know that in the UK, those little like round sprinkles that we call nonpareils, they call hundreds and thousands?
What?
I know.
No, I've never heard
No.
Yeah. Wow, that is a fun fact.
Hundreds
and thousands.
Wow.
But anyway,
I want to look up. I'm going to read the Wikipedia article about that later, for sure.
Well, Kishia, we'll have to start our own dessert-based podcast in the future.
Yes, I'm all up for that.
Put that on my list. But now we can start to really dive in. So I guess our first question for you, really basic, what is your relationship with music?
I would say my relay with music is that it's always been around me. My parents, when I was younger, they always played the oldies. Well, it wasn't the oldies to them at that point, and really not to me, but they would play them like almost every day and night, to the point I would go to school singing like Just My Imagination from the Temptations, and like, hey guys, you got to get onto this. This is like a new groove. Like, listen to this groove. It was really bad. I would always have, it was this TV entertainment show. What was it called? It was called The Box, and it would just play music all day. I think it was MTV. And then I would always have music choice in the background when I'm at home, like in my teenage years. My sister, she had a plethora of CDs just like crowding her dresser, and we would put them on and like make music videos to them and dance to them and like put on shows for our family to see like later on the day. My dad would like want me to record Street Corner Sunday, and this was a program that came on 98.1 WOGL FM. And
wow.
yeah, and he would have the little cassette in his tape deck, and he's like, I would come run in there and record a song that he liked and run out so he could jam to it. And it's just like every kind of memory that I have is attached to a song. So some songs I can't listen to because it reminds me of somebody deceased or somebody that has wronged me. I sound like a villain that has wronged me. But if I didn't have music, I wouldn't have like a lot of memories, if any.
So, I mean, you said mostly, like when you say oldies, like Motown oldies, that sort of thing?
Yeah, like Motown, the great hits of the 60s and the 70s and stuff like that. Yeah, he was really big on that.
Using tape, cassette tapes to record things, I feel like we might be the last generation that ever had to do that. So
yeah, and it's skillful. Like you have to like rewind it to the point that you really want it at, and then record it. Then you can't record over it. It's a lot.
It takes touch. It takes touch. Kids these days, they don't have
they don't know. They don't know.
I remember like leaving it on a radio station, like when I really wanted to hear a song and I wanted to have it, and I didn't have the money to go buy the single, because you remember when they had cassette singles.
Yeah.
I'd like say, okay, I'm going to commit to listening to the station for the next like 45 minutes, and if they play it, I've got my tape deck like with the record pause on there. All I got to do is like press it, like develop your reflexes to like hit the pause as soon as possible to get the whole song.
Oh man, so many memories flooding back.
Did you, maybe you said this a second ago, but did you make CDs like mixtapes? Like did you like mix CDs? Because I remember that was something. I mean, obviously we can create playlists nowadays on our given streaming services like Spotify.
Nice,
but there was something about burning a mix CD for a friend that was very satisfying.
Yeah, my dad actually had a friend that would after he messed up all his cassettes, I was like, you should try CDs, Dad. They're really easy. So he had this friend that would come to him and ask him, just any song you would like, just write it down and give it to me, and I'll burn a CD for you. And it would literally be me sitting there with a pamphlet, and my dad would be like, this song. So I would just be writing for hours, and I hated it. But he had like a lot of CDs after the tape debacle.
Rest in peace, cassette tapes.
Yeah, there are at least 3 albums I can think of that I had to buy again because I wore out the tape so much.
Really?
Oh, yeah. One of them being an album we covered last season, Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814. I'm pretty sure the same thing happened to my friend Meg. We both ended up wearing out our tapes and then bought the CDs when it became necessary.
That's a good album.
Did it right. Yeah, you did it right.
It is a good album. It goes to 11, as we have proven. So how did you come to discover this particular album, Frank Ocean's Blonde?
So Frank Ocean like leaves these huge gaps between releasing of his albums, and I knew who Frank Ocean was, and like once I heard the buzz that he was going to come out with an album, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I wasn't as excited, and I wasn't like jumping out of my seat because I wasn't awaiting things from him. Like prior to Blonde, I didn't really listen to Channel Orange or Nostalgia Ultra. I didn't really like listen to those. I heard some tracks here and there, but it wasn't like a big thing to me. So it was around the time I graduated. It was like a year after I graduated. So I was like kind of freshly out of college. And my friend Dennis, he was like, yo, you know, Frank Ocean, he's releasing a new album. And I'm like, oh, dope. That's cool. I went home. People around my way, they're like, yo, Frank Ocean, he's finally delivering something. I'm like, oh, okay. I get on Facebook. Everybody's talking about it. And I'm like, yes. Okay. I really need to, I need to listen to this album. And when it dropped, oh my Lord, like it was the only thing I listened to for like months. And like, it was something that I never heard before. And I just fell in love.
Yeah. You were like immediately into it?
I was immediately into it, which like was weird to me because sometimes like that doesn't happen often, especially like to me. I'm like kind of picky when it comes to music and things. And I am kind of that person that if everybody is on an artist, I'm like, it's probably not that good. I'll listen to it later. So like when everybody was on Frank Ocean about Channel Orange and Nostalgia Ultra and all this other stuff, I was like, I'll get to him. He sounds good. But then I heard it and I was like, okay, I'm on this. I'm saying on this. Like that.
Yeah. When something lives up to the hype. I love when something lives up to the hype. I'm going to give you some points for that. I'm going to give you, what was it? It was 2016 the album came out?
It was, yeah.
So I'm going to give you 2016 points for living up to the hype.
Yes! Thanks, Frank, for releasing it then. So I can get those.
I think it's just amazing to me because the fact that you like got into it so off the first listen. Because I mean, I will say for me, I loved Channel Orange, and I only like barely listened to this when it first came out, and I gave it a re-listen because you brought it to our pantheon, and so often the albums that stick with me the most are the ones that take a little bit of time to really get under my skin. And I mean, that's one that, I mean, this album, I've sort of had the opposite experience you've had with this, where like over time, this has like sunken into me in a good way.
My response was pretty immediate too. I think it was because I never quite connected with Channel Orange, but I sort of appreciated Frank for the personality that he was in the scene. Yeah. So there's nobody like Frank Ocean. He cuts a singular figure. Knowing that context and then experiencing Blonde and it hitting so hard right off the bat, I think was something where I was like, oh, this is a special artist. This is an artist that does not come along every day. Not to mythologize too much.
Has your relationship changed with the album over time? I mean, since it first came out, is it something you still listen to pretty regularly, or do you associate it with other aspects of your life?
Yes, I listen to this album on repeat sometimes. I feel like it's just such a good album. There's so many things in there that you can like pick apart, and it's like a vibe for all types of vibes. Like sometimes an album can be one type of vibe. It can be like, okay, I'm going to get some work done and I need to be creative. Let me put on a Solange album or something like that. But with this album, I find myself putting it on and just letting it play, and my moods just change with like almost every song, but like in a good way and in a way of like, ooh, where am I going next? So like this, I'm always playing this album like it's new.
Ooh. 10 points on the board for like it's new.
Hey.
One of the things that we've inquired about with other guests on this is kind of like when you're like your literal initial experience with a piece of music, whatever it might be. Do you find that you're typically drawn to the instrumental music right away, or that you're more drawn to the vocal, like lyrical content first? Is there a tendency that you have?
I'm more connected to the background sounds. I'm more connected to like ad libs, the instruments that I hear in the background, how much space is in the song, instead of the lyrics. When I start paying attention too much to the lyrics, I'm not listening to the song.
What do you mean by space within the song?
Like, so this album made me appreciate times where there is like no words, or when it's just like a continuing sound that changes or crescendos or anything like that, because Frank Ocean has a lot of different soundscapes in this album, and it takes you one place and then leaves you another place. And that's what like I love so much about this. And it just made me feel like I didn't need words. It made me feel like I didn't need any lyrics. I could just listen to his, like, he could just be humming or just saying nonsensical stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you, Frank. I'm with you. It's just because he's putting you in this mood, in this like weird, like kind of psychedelic, spacey vibe.
Psychedelic is a good word for it, because some of the stuff that we learned from listening to that podcast, there's so many drug references all over this album. I'm like, all over the place.
Yeah.
It almost feels to me like the experience of listening to this album, it feels like a really well-made theatrical sound design in some ways. Like all the stuff behind it. And like, I mean, because also he does so much manipulation with vocals and with instrumentation. That it's not, I mean, this is, it is a heavily produced album, and yet somehow manages to come across as this incredibly intimate experience.
It's not overproduced, I don't think.
No.
I think you can tell a lot of music nowadays. You can just maybe see there were too many cooks in the kitchen, or you get this sense that they thought about it a little bit too hard. But what an insane feat of artistry to put the sort of attention and care, intention as well, into something, and it seems effortless. It seems like it just sprung up out of the ground.
Yeah, and like that's what I loved about this too, because it was such a long gap in between his other project to this, and everybody's waiting like, oh, you shouldn't take this time. Like he had writer's block, and it was just like all this stuff. Kind of yeah. Like you're supposed to just keep on releasing stuff while people know you're like relevant. But it seems like everything that he does is very intentional, and he won't release anything without it meaning something to him, or it like having some sense of, it's just like he's not releasing bullcrap.
Less is more. For him.
It's crazy the idea that you know, Tyler, you said something about too many cooks in the kitchen. There's a ton of people on this album, and yet somehow, like, I mean, I found this interview with one of the people. I think his name is Sebastian. He's like a French DJ or something like that, and he was asked about working on the album, and he said it was like Frank Ocean was the architect, and we were building this like amazing building, and it just felt like no one brought their ego into the room. Like Frank had a very specific vision for it, but everyone was just like, yeah, we're all working together. Like it sounded like a dream collaboration is what it sounded like.
And he has that spirit, you know, like he has the spirit of somebody who's like in service of something. I don't know. I love artists that I feel have like a central question to their body of work. And it's not even something that you can articulate, but there's something about Frank Ocean that makes you think, oh, this guy's got a connection to some deep, deep question about the human experience that I will listen to him. I will listen to him search through that. I want to bear witness to that.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree.
Have you ever used this album as like inspiration for, I don't know, like any characters that you've played? Because I actually don't know about your habits as an actor in terms of whether like do you try and identify music for your characters, or do you have warm up music or theme music for any of your roles?
Well, for this album dropped like the same time I got my first real speaking role in a play. And when it came out, I was like, not when I got the role, this was the album I would learn my lines to. And like, I would just have it in the background. And like, when it was like the upbeat tempos, I would just be like jumping around my room and learning the lines. And then when it got down to like stuff like Ivy or Pink and White, I'm just like there swooning over the lines. And just like, it was a good tool for me to remember. And also, when we started rehearsals for that show, the whole cast loved the album too. So we would all talk about it beforehand. We would have it for pre-dressing room music. I remember that Oh God. I remember I was talking to one of the guys in the cast that is now my boyfriend, James. And yeah, we were like talking about this album, and we already knew that we liked each other and stuff like that. And one night I texted him and I was like, I thought that I was dreaming when you said you loved me. And I texted to him and he texted me something to like the fact of like, yep, it's all real. Yep, I meant it or something. And right here, I'm thinking he was going to like say the other line to the lyric. And I was like, oh my God. He really loves me. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, we're in this. So it kind of like shaped my relationship.
Oh my God, yeah. Kishia, that's an... I don't know how many points can I give you for that? I gotta give you like 700 points for dropping that right onto the thread. Look at you, look at you. That is bold.
Yeah, that was a lot. I'm that type of person. Oh gosh.
There's something. I mean, I can remember like, you know, when you're in love, and sometimes you find that song where the lyrics are like using another person's lyrics that like. I mean, if you're not in love or if you're looking at it from a distance, you're kind of like, oh, that's super cheesy. But like when you're in the moment, you're like, oh no, this is exactly what I need to express this feeling.
He'll know exactly what I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So actually now feels like a good time to maybe introduce this track that you've chosen as your standout track for the album.
Yes, it does.
Could you tell us what that is and why you've chosen it? Because we didn't really give you any sort of standards for this. We're just like, what's your standout track? So tell us about it.
My standout track is Siegfried. It's number 15. It speaks to me personally because I struggle, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with being ourselves, and we're always in that limbo of like, should I do this to make others happy and make things easier, or should I be my true, weird, happy self that others may have a problem with? Mm-hmm. And I hear that so clear and so vividly in this song, and when I first heard it, like it took me like maybe 3 like plays of it to really like know what he was talking about, or to interpret it the way I think to interpret what I think he's talking about. And it always just came back to being afraid of being who you truly are, and like kind of being shunned by others because they don't get you.
Yeah, I will say I was surprised by your choice, specifically because it sort of seems like the oddball song on the album in some ways. But hearing your description of it, I'm like, oh, of course, that's why you would choose this one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's just like, and like some of the stuff that he says when he be like, I'm not brave, I'd rather live outside than lose my mind out here. And like, I kind of interpret it into like 2 different ways. Like, he's either saying I'm not brave, like the things that I want and I want to do aren't heroic. Mm-hmm. They're just things that people don't usually do or are too afraid to do. Or he's meaning I'm not brave, like I'm not strong enough to do it, so I'm going to stay on the safe side. And it's just like, I don't know, this song just makes me feel like I'm floating and not tethered down to expectations of what other people want, but that's exactly what he's talking about. So it's just like, whoa, where am I? And it's just like so spacey too. All I feel like it's just like one instrument being played and just a whole bunch of weird sounds, and like I just see colors when I hear this song too.
I'm going to give you 90 points for floating into the unknown on this one. Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it, because it really is just kind of embracing the chaos of not knowing what the right decision is in your life. Mm-hmm, that's a great way of putting it.
Why don't we have our listeners listen to it? We'll say a few more things about it on the other side. So let's listen to Siegfried, featuring a string arrangement by Johnny Greenwood of Radiohead. There we go, listeners. We've dropped the Radiohead reference for the episode.
There you go.
Let's give it a listen.
That's the end of part 1. If you access this episode via our YouTube playlist, you're about to hear our guest's standout track. If you'd like to jump ahead to part 2, you'll find a link in the description of this episode.